Anyone have a brick wall? Because I'm ready to run through one. Sean Miller crushed his introductory press conference. We'll let you hear from the new head coach of Texas men's basketball next on Locked On Longhorns. Intro!
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin native, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell your Longhorn friends about Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later in the episode. Texas made it official last night, and they didn't waste a lot of time before holding the introductory press conference for new basketball coach Sean Miller. Chairman of the UT Board of Regents Kevin Eltife, interim university president Jim Davis, athletics director Chris Delconte, and Sean Miller spoke to a room full of assembled media, current and former Texas basketball players, other Longhorn coaches, and more on campus earlier today for about an hour. We're not going to spend too much time focusing on those first two names, but we are going to talk about what AD Chris Delconte and, more importantly, what new coach Sean Miller had to say, and we'll let you hear from both of them as well. My initial thoughts on Sean Miller's portion of today's festivities: he knocked it out of the park. His opening statement was well thought out and incredibly detailed. He thanked Xavier for everything that they've done for him. Of course, he had two different stints as the head coach of the Musketeers. He gave some love to Rodney Terry and shouted out RT and the job he's done as the head coach for the last 3 years, but also the job he did as a part of the Texas coaching staff for more than a decade. He thanked the former players who showed up, and he talked about the importance of having them around the program in the future. He talked about his vision for the program and why he thinks he can have success here. And of course, to top it all off, he dropped the all-important hook 'em at the end of the opening statement. Then, of course, they opened things up to media questions. I thought Sean Miller's answers were direct. I thought he was very clear with his reasoning for why he took the job. And I thought he wasn't shy in laying out his expectations for Texas basketball with him at the helm. Long story short, Sean Miller won the introductory press conference. Now, that doesn't win you any games. That doesn't do anything for the standings. That won't put any banners up at Moody Center. And look, there have been plenty of coaches who have quote unquote won their introductory pressers and ended up not working out. And of course, there have been examples of the exact opposite of that happening as well. But this is all we've got right now. And I thought Sean Miller was great today. He said all of the right things. He thanked all of the right people. And again, he laid out his expectations for what Texas basketball is going to be with him in charge, and he wasn't shying away from the expectations that come with a head coaching position at the University of Texas. He referenced Vic Schaefer. He referenced Steve Sarkisian. He referenced a few other coaches that are currently on the 40 acres that have their teams competing for conference and national championships, and he openly talked about wanting to be a part of that as well. What stood out the most from today? Well, we'll start with a cut from Chris Delconte, who is the man perhaps most responsible for the hiring of Sean Miller to Texas. CDC was asked about what he saw in Sean Miller and why he felt like Sean was the right man for the job. Take a listen.
When I found and had my conversation with Coach Miller and his wife, I found a hungry dog, a dog that's ready to compete at the highest level, wants a chance to win a championship, has honed his offensive and defensive skills for this opportunity. He came for this job with a mindset that I want to take Texas basketball to its rightful place. He's been there. He has pelts on the wall that says this is the journey we need to take. No different than the coaches we hired with Coach Schaefer, Coach Schlossnagle. I see Angie there. I see Jared here. Incredible coaches are in this room. Coach Schaefer, you're on a run, my man. I see you back there, buddy. Coaches that constantly adhere to the standard. That's what we were looking for.
Yeah, of course, CDC giving a shout out to Vic Schaefer, who has just led the Texas women's basketball team back to the Sweet 16. But Chris Delconte talking publicly and also talking privately to Sean Miller was like, hey, see what these other coaches are doing here? That's what we want, and that's what we expect from you. And again, Sean Miller talked about those other coaches as well, and he understands what is expected of him. But Chris Delconte, how about that? Calling Sean Miller a hungry dog, a guy who is ready to put in the work to make things happen. And of course, CDC referenced the resume of Sean Miller, a coach who's won more than 71% of his games as a Division I college basketball coach. We've talked about it in previous episodes. Sean Miller has won 8 regular season conference championships. He's won 4 conference tournament titles. He's been to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament 8 different times. He's made it to the Elite 8 4 different times. He's had a bunch of success in the regular season and in the postseason as well. And there's no doubt the resume was a huge part of why Chris Delconte felt like Sean Miller was the right man for the job. He's had success at multiple schools, again, both in the regular season and in the postseason as well. And it's clear, I mean, you didn't have to hear anything from CDC today. If you believe the rumors from a couple of years ago when Rodney Terry was just the interim coach and Texas was deciding whether or not to make RT the full-time guy, I mean, Sean Miller was a favorite of Chris Delconte back then. And there's a chance that if Texas lost to Xavier in the 2023 Sweet 16, that Sean Miller would have been named the head coach instead of Rodney Terry. Obviously, that didn't happen, but I bring that up to tell you maybe Miller has been the apple of CDC's eye for a couple of years, and he's been waiting for the right opportunity to make this move. Obviously, Rodney Terry losing to Sean Miller's Xavier team a couple of weeks ago makes this, just 1 week ago, as a matter of fact, makes this an easier sell to this fan base, and I think gives more credence to why CDC is a big believer in what Sean Miller is bringing to the table. So now Chris Delconte has his guy. Thought he had his guy with Chris Beard and then Rodney Terry. This is the 3rd basketball coach that Chris Delconte has hired. Obviously, Texas has had a lot of coaching turnover in this sport. 5 different coaches in the last 10 years, dating back to the end of Rick Barnes' legendary tenure in Austin. I don't think any of us want to do another introductory press conference anytime soon. How about the coach himself? Here's Sean Miller. He was asked about why he left Xavier for this opportunity here in Austin.
And, at the end of the day, this is a life-changing opportunity for me and my family. And I believe that it gives us the best opportunity to compete and win for national championships. The world of college sports has flipped upside down over the last 3 to 5 years, but no more sport than in college basketball. And when you think of the SEC 10 years ago or 5 years ago in the sport of basketball, and you look at this year, there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference in the talent, the parity, the coaches, and I think to have the opportunity to compete against the best can bring out the best in you. And that was a big part of this.
So again, Sean Miller, by the way, hope y'all enjoyed that screen share. Spent way too much time on that graphic. It's really not that good, but hopefully it was worth it. Sean Miller not shying away from the expectations and not shying away from the competition. This isn't a Lincoln Riley case where, Lincoln Riley's at OU. He catches wind that the Sooners are headed to the SEC, and he's like, I'm out. Sean Miller is running towards the SEC, which, of course, was the best conference in college basketball this season. It has 7 teams in the Sweet 16, which is a record, and it doesn't look like the Southeastern Conference is going anywhere anytime soon. I expect it to be the premier league in men's college basketball for years to come, similar to the way it has been in football and baseball and women's college hoops, and the list goes on and on. One other thing, by the way, when we come back here in a couple of minutes, we'll have more sound from Sean Miller, including what you as a fan should expect when you're turning on the TV to watch the Longhorns moving forward. But I thought there were a couple of things that Sean Miller said that really stood out that are worth bringing up right here. He called this his final opportunity and also used the phrase final piece to my puzzle when talking about the Texas job. To me, Sean Miller wants to stick around for a while. Everything he said today made it seem like he's not going to be here for a couple of years and hope that he lands some other job somewhere else. He's not going to be here and then try to leave for the NBA. He's not almost close to retiring. He's 56 years old. It's not like, when I turn 60, I'm going to be done with this thing and y'all are going to have to find somebody new in the not too distant future. No, I didn't hear any of that. And again, Texas has hired 5 different men's basketball coaches in the last decade. So Sean Miller knows that he's got to perform to get to do that, to get to stick around for a long time. But again, he took this gig with the expectation of ending his career in Austin. That's good for any Texas basketball fan. 56 years old right now. I wouldn't mind a nice 10 or 15 run for Sean Miller at Texas. He sounds very excited, and I'm tired of talking about the hiring and firing of men's basketball coaches, and I'm sure y'all are tired of hearing people talk about the hiring and firing of men's basketball coaches. It feels like you've got just about every other coach right, and Chris Delconte has done a tremendous job with most of the hirings that he's made. He obviously referenced Vic Schaefer and Mike White and Steve Sarkisian. Those three guys are doing phenomenal jobs here on the 40 acres. Hopefully, Sean Miller can be next in line for that. All right, what is Sean Miller bringing to Texas? Well, I promised it, so we'll bring it to you. The new coach laid out the 4 most important elements to a successful college basketball program. We'll let him explain what those are coming up next right here on Locked on Longhorns. But first, a word from our great friends at Nissan. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked on college basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. And this week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week is the Arkansas Razorbacks. Despite losing their first 5 SEC games, Coach Cal's Hogs fought their way to the most rugged conference in college basketball to not only make it to the NCAA tournament, but to knock off big-time coaches on their way to a Sweet 16. They accomplished all of this without their leading scorer, or their second leading scorer, Boogie Flan, for most of SEC play, and without their leading scorer and rebounder, Adu Thero, so far in the NCAA tournament. Arkansas, they've been the real deal. And when it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer. That's exactly what the Arkansas Razorbacks have done here. It's clear that our Team of the Week was ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can with the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com today. All right, welcome back to Locked on Longhorns, your team every day. We promised it. Sean Miller talked about the 4 most important elements to a successful program. The first one, recruiting. Sean Miller called it the lifeblood of any college athletics program. Here's a little bit more from Texas's new head coach.
Here at Texas, I could name a lot of names, some of which are right here in the crowd, but TJ Ford from Houston, obviously Kevin Durant, who's from D.C., LaMarcus Aldridge from Dallas, Avery Bradley from Seattle. I bring those examples up because you see that the great state of Texas, like, it might be the most talent-rich state in our country when it comes to recruiting. Yet, you know, what starts here changes the world. You can go to Canada and get Tristan Thompson. You can go to Seattle and get Avery Bradley. It's both the combination of this great state and also the world. And I think our job is to recruit the world and bring the best program and team we can here to Texas.
That's well said from Sean Miller. He's right. I mean, the talent in the state of Texas is good enough to win you a national championship. So you want to keep the top guys here at home, but also, yeah, you're the University of Texas. Go out and get some of the biggest dogs from not only around the country, but around the world as well. And Sean Miller has a history of doing that. He went and got DeAndre Ayton, who's from the Bahamas. He went and got Lauri Markkanen, who's from Europe. He went and got Josh Green, who's from Australia. Like, a bunch of different guys that Sean Miller was able to land during his time at Arizona. Well, he went international to get those dudes. So you talk about Texas and the Longhorns' track record of bringing in players from all over the country and all over the world. Sean Miller has a pretty good track record. The one time he's had a high major / high profile job as a Division I men's college basketball coach, he was able to use the resources at Arizona to go out and get the best of the best from all over the globe. So that was number 1, the first pillar that Sean Miller talked about. Here's pillar number 2. This is a big one. How about the importance of player development?
Player development. It's one thing to recruit people and players to your program. They have to get better. The greatest gift that's happened to me as a coach is that I coached at Xavier. We might not be able to get the McDonald's All-American. In our history at Xavier, we stand at a grand total of 0 McDonald's All-Americans. Yet if you look at the results, how did that happen? How do you have winning teams and teams that advance in March Madness? Players have to improve. They have to grow. They have to get better. And when you're in charge or a part of that type of program, we're going to bring that same type of staff and know-how here to Texas, so that it's not only recruiting great talent, but it's making sure that they develop in the proper way, that one day they can become an NBA player.
I assume most of you tuning in to this episode are also Texas football fans. Therefore, I don't think I need to explain to you the importance of development, right? Recruiting is obviously important. You've got to bring in talented players to have a chance to compete for championships. But if you're not developing that talent, you've got no shot. That was a huge problem for Texas football during the dozen years of suck, right? And they were recruiting really well. Charlie Strong was bringing in top 10 classes. Tom Herman was bringing in top 10 classes, yet guys weren't being developed, and that is why Texas was losing way too many games. Recruiting, it's really never been a huge problem for Texas basketball. Not always as good as Texas football, but the Longhorns have been able to recruit pretty well more often than not in this sport too. But development, right? Texas has wasted so many great players over the last decade and change. That's got to change. You've got to bring in the best players, but you also have to make sure they get better once they get to your campus. Hasn't always felt that way. So I'm glad Sean Miller brought up his time at Xavier. Obviously, he's going to recruit closer to the level he did at Arizona than he did at Xavier, but that should go to show you how good of a developer this guy is. Xavier, they don't get the McDonald's All-Americans. They don't get the 5 stars. They don't get the one-and-done lottery picks. Yet he was still able to win a bunch of games in the regular season and the postseason. You get the recruiting advantages that you get in Austin, plus the development that Sean Miller brings to the table. That could make for a pretty special combination. What about the third pillar that Coach Miller discussed? I think y'all are really going to like this one. The style of play. What brand of basketball are you going to get if you make your way to Moody Center or if you turn on a Texas basketball game with Sean Miller at the head coach? Here's a little bit about the coach. Here's a little bit from the coach, talking about his style of play.
When you think of our style, in addition to pace, you should think of movement, both ball and player movement, a togetherness on both offense and defense. And most importantly, and I think if you don't have it in this league that we're in, you have zero chance. And that is, you better have a great toughness and will about you when you watch us play. You have to compete for it all. Every possession matters. So pace, movement, togetherness, and toughness, I think it really embodies the style that I believe in, and that's the style that we'll play here at Texas.
There you go. Pace, movement, toughness, and togetherness. And yes, movement. Oh my God, player movement. That's music to my ears. I think that's music to any Texas basketball fan's ears, because we've seen way too much stagnation, too much iso ball, too much hero ball, whatever you want to call it. We're actually going to see some ball movement, some player movement, some more refined offensive sets than what we've seen over the last few years. That's not just a Rodney Terry problem. That's a problem that predated RT. Sean Miller has been a very good offensive coach. He's adapted his offensive scheme for the 21st century. That's why his teams at Xavier have been some of the best in the country when it comes to points per game and offensive efficiency metrics. So love that. Last but not least, no sound for this one, but Sean Miller talked about culture. He talked about the importance of having culture, not just when times are good, but when times are bad. He referenced his Xavier team that, lost one of its best players to a season-ending injury in January. They were not a tournament team. Kind of midway through conference play, then the Musketeers went on a 7-game win streak in the Big East to get back on the bubble. They obviously did enough in the eyes of the selection committee to get into the dance. So he's like, hey, yeah, culture. Every coach talks about culture. When it's good, kind of easy to have culture. But when it's bad, is your culture strong enough to get you where you need to get? And Sean Miller talked about that being important. And he also talked about all in. He, of course, mentioned players needing to be all the way in for this thing to work. But he also talked about the fans and the administration and former players and every stakeholder with this Texas basketball program being all in. He referenced the importance of a home court advantage. He talked about the student section and the corral and everything there. So it was sort of a call to the fans like, hey, I can't do this alone. We need the Mood to be one of the toughest places in the country for opposing teams to play. It's going to take all of us for us to win national championships. So there you go. There's some from Sean Miller, some of the highlights from his introductory press conference. He also added, if you combine those four things, the recruiting, the player development, the style of pace, and the culture, quote, magical things are going to happen. I agree. All right, you've heard from the head coach. Now let's let you hear from me. What's next for Sean Miller? We talk about his next steps and what he needs to do to get this roster figured out for next season. That's coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word from our friends at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. They've got a super easy-to-use website that is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. More than 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, so you're going to find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And hey, if you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you're always going to talk to a real person. They've got a free TradeMaster program that offers exclusive perks and a dedicated phone line as well, plus free shipping and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM. Start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks and use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. Again, that's supplyhouse.com/TM.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown. Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup. Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free. It's your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. No, there's not an echo in here. So what's next for Sean Miller? The introductory press conference is now in the rearview mirror. What's Sean Miller's first order of business? Well, he's got to put together a roster. And the first places to look when you're a new coach trying to put together a new roster are the current roster and the roster from the place that you just left. So we'll start with the Texas roster from this past season. Arthur Kaluma, Caden Shedrick, Jason Kent, Julian Larry. All four of those guys are out of college eligibility. They're gone. Trey Johnson might as well be out of college eligibility because he's off to the league. So that leaves us here. There are 6 scholarship players remaining from this past season that still have eligibility. Tremont Mark, Jordan Pope, Kendall Weaver, Devon Pryor, Nick Cody, Jamie Vincent. I think my math is right. Out of those 6, priority number 1 for me is Kendall Weaver. The good news, Kendall Weaver was at Sean Miller's press conference today. Even more good news, there's a couple of videos floating around the internet of Sean Miller having a one-on-one conversation with Kendall Weaver after the press conference wrapped up. So Sean Miller already starting to put in work. Hell, in the first 4, the press conference leading up to the first 4, Sean Miller talked about Kendall Weaver and how good of a player he was and how every coach in America would love to have a Kendall Weaver on their own team. Maybe Coach Miller already knew he was coming down to Texas. Maybe that was the start of the re-recruitment to make sure that Weaver doesn't hit the portal. His role in the team is obvious. High impact, spark plug, great athlete, super high motor guy who makes plays on defense and can add a little bit of a spark on the offensive end of the floor as well. Just plug and play trait guy. I don't need to tell you all about Kendall Weaver. I think Texas's season would have been a lot different if Weaver was healthy this year. He's a winning player and a coach's dream. He's priority number 1. Then you get to Jordan Pope and Tremont Mark. Look, neither of those guys had great years for Texas, but for Jordan Pope, that's the guy who averaged 17 points per game at Oregon State in 2024. If Texas brings in a true point guard, he could get closer to those numbers than what he had last year. I won't lose a ton of sleep if Pope leaves, and I'll leave it in Sean Miller's hands. Maybe he doesn't want Jordan Pope to come back. But again, if you have a true point guard playing next to him, I think it could work. Enough with the square peg, round hole stuff. Jordan Pope's not a point guard. I know in size he is, but in game he's not. You bring in somebody, again, who can run the offense. I think it can make life easier for Jordan Pope, and I think he can succeed in the type of offense that Sean Miller has run in the past. Tremont Mark, another transfer, disappointing year, came on strong late when he started to play point guard. I don't believe he's a true point guard, though. Again, I hope Texas goes out and gets somebody else. I don't think he's the perfect fit for what Sean Miller wants to do offensively, but again, he showed you some athleticism. He's a great perimeter defender, and if the coach wants to bring him back, I'd be on board with that as well. So those are some of the Texas guys to talk about real quick, and we'll spend more time in the future talking about other portal options for Texas. But two players from Xavier that I want to bring up. One of them is Dalen Swain, who has already hit the portal. I think we touched on him a little bit yesterday. 6'7", 6'8". He's an old school wing, great edge defender. Not a great three-point shooter, but he slashes. He can score efficiently at the rim. He's got a solid handle for a guy his size. At some point, he is going to be an NBA player, and he might at least test the waters this offseason. My guess is, though, he's going to be playing college ball somewhere else next year. Would love for that to be at Texas. I think he is a day one starter if he comes to Austin. And then Ryan Conwell, the second leading scorer for the Musketeers. He has not hit the portal just yet. He did play with Jason Kent and Julian Larry at Indiana State before transferring to Xavier last season. It's a guy who averaged 16.5 points per game in Sean Miller's offense this past year. 45% shooting, 41% from deep, a great free throw shooter as well. He's 6'4", 215. He averaged 16 a game at Indiana State as well, so he's not a one-year wonder. That guy is another plug-and-play day one starter at Texas. His scoring was super effective in that Sean Miller motion-heavy offense, so we got a bunch of clean looks. An elite shooter both off the catch and off the bounce. Would love him. So if you're able to get Conwell and Swain and keep Weaver, that is a damn good start to a rebuild right there. Obviously, you need more than 3 players. Maybe a couple of other Longhorns come back. Maybe a couple of other Musketeers come down to Austin. Maybe it's just portal players from other schools. But again, that is a really, really good core if you're able to land those 3. So again, we'll spend more time in future episodes talking about what this roster could look like. You saw the portal open up yesterday. You're seeing a ton of players enter it. You're going to see more and more enter it in the coming days. Hopefully not too many will leave Texas. Hopefully the Longhorns are able to add some big-time pieces so they can field a very competitive roster in year one of the Sean Miller era. But again, I loved what I heard today. I think Sean Miller absolutely won the press conference. I've been going to bat for him for the last 4 or 5 days now. Nothing that happened today makes me feel any worse about the Sean Miller hire. I think he's going to do great things at Texas, and I think we're going to see those great things start very, very soon. Hey, thank you all for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On College Basketball Show with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here. Be the most informed college basketball fan throughout all of the madness. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We'll get back into football tomorrow. Texas Pro Day going on today. The biggest takeaways from day one of spring football, which also starts today. Plenty more Texas football, plenty more Texas basketball. So much going on the 40 acres. That's why you need to keep it locked on to Locked On Longhorns all of the time. Please like the video. Please leave a comment as well. Please rate. Please subscribe. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Until next time, horns up, mic's off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.